I remember the rain that day. Not a gentle drizzle, but a persistent, relentless fall that soaked the world in gray. It seemed almost fitting, like the sky itself was mourning my daughter, Anna, my only child, my heart. And I walked through the wet streets toward St. Mark's Church as if each step carried the weight of the world. The church loomed ahead, its stained glass windows muted in the storm, the bells tolling slowly, echoing against the walls and across the empty streets. I pressed my coat tighter against me, though it did little to shield the ache in my chest. I felt the wetness creeping through my shoes, chilling my feet, and for a brief moment I envied the oblivion of the storm, blind, relentless, and uncaring. I had seen Anna that morning, or rather, I had seen her body, carefully laid out by hands that tried so desperately to honor life where it no longer remained. And yet, it was only a shell. Her laughter, her anger, her stubborn spirit, gone. And in its place, a silence that felt like it could swallow the world. I walked slowly into the church, each step echoing in the vast, hollow space. Mourners whispered softly, the sound like distant wind through hollow branches. Faces blurred into shadow and sorrow. Some I recognized, neighbors, family friends, distant cousins, all dressed in black, all carrying their own version of grief. I saw the priest standing near the altar, murmuring prayers that seemed to drift into the air rather than reach it. Beside me, my grandson, Thomas, just 7, but already burdened with a weight far too heavy for a child, clutched my hand. He had Anna's eyes, those wide, questioning eyes that always saw more than they should. He looked up at me with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Grandpa, where is she?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and bent down, letting him press his small face into my chest. "I don't know, Thomas," I said, the words tasting like ashes. "I don't know." The coffin lay in the center of the church, simple oak, polished, gleaming, but still just wood. And inside, my Anna. The face I had kissed, the hands I had held, the voice I had scolded and adored, all gone. A photograph rested atop the coffin, her smile as radiant as the first morning sun. It was almost cruel how alive she looked in that image, almost mocking the silence that now filled the space. I remember the first time I truly held her as a baby, her tiny fingers curling around mine, her head nestled against my chest, her breath soft and warm. I had promised her, even then, that I would protect her from all harm, and now I had failed. Thomas tugged at my sleeve. "Grandpa, will she come back?" I wanted to tell him yes. I wanted to lie and say that tomorrow we would hear her laugh again, that she would scold me for worrying too much, that she would be there to chase him around the garden and make us all smile. But I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, "No, Thomas, she won't. But we remember her, always." As I walked toward the casket, my mind wandered back to the last week of Anna's life. She seemed off, not sick off, not ill off, but distracted, like someone carrying a weight they couldn't name. I asked her once if she was happy. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I asked again, and she only shook her head. I thought it was just the stress of her new job, the late nights, the obligations. I didn't see it. I didn't notice. And now, as I looked at her still form, I realized how little I had truly known her. I had known Anna, the child, the teenager, the young woman who argued with me over the smallest things, but not Anna, the person she had become in those final weeks. Then I noticed it, a movement, a shadow shifting in the corner of the church, near the casket. I blinked. Thomas tugged at my hand. "Grandpa, what is that?" I shook my head, forcing a laugh I didn't feel. "Nothing, Thomas, just your imagination." But it wasn't nothing. I felt it again, a flicker, a whisper of presence, something, someone I couldn't explain. I walked closer, my cane tapping softly against the stone floor, echoing through the vast room. And there, at the foot of the casket, I saw it, a small, folded paper. It was a letter, handwritten, Anna's handwriting, perfect, familiar, but trembling in the way her hands always trembled when she was nervous. I froze. No one else noticed it, not the priest, not the mourners, not even Thomas, who now pressed closer to me, sensing my tension. I unfolded it with care, every second stretching into eternity. The letter began simply, "Papa, if you are reading this, I am gone. I cannot tell you everything in life, not now, not in person, but I must tell you this. There are truths I could not share, secrets I carried to protect you, and perhaps myself." My heart began to pound. Every word she had written seemed to echo in the room, and as I read further, the shadows at the edges of my vision seemed to grow darker, as if the air itself wanted me to notice. The letter spoke of things I had never imagined, of dangers, of people I trusted, of choices she had made in silence, and then a mention of someone close, someone I had known my entire life who had caused her pain. My hand shook so violently that I nearly dropped the letter. Thomas looked up at me, eyes wide. "Grandpa, what is it?" I could only whisper, "It's nothing, just a story your mother wanted me to know." But I lied to him. It was nothing. It was everything I had never seen, everything I had failed to protect, and it was only the beginning. I knelt beside the casket, holding the letter to my chest. I could feel the warmth of her words. I could feel the life she had carried, the love she had given, the pain she had hidden. And I realized I had not truly known her, not fully. For the first time in my life, I understood the depth of absence, not just of her body, but of the things she had left unsaid, the things I had never asked. And the shadows in the corners of the church, I felt them watching, waiting, urging me to see. After the church emptied, after the whispered condolences and the silent nods of strangers, Thomas and I stayed behind. The heavy air of St. Mark's Church still pressed down on me, a quiet reminder that life can vanish in the blink of an eye. I held the letter close, unwilling to open it again immediately. I feared what I might find, and yet I knew I had to. I sat on the worn wooden pew, Thomas resting his head on my shoulder, both of us listening to the gentle drip of rain against the stained glass. I could feel the weight of the letter burning against my chest. Finally, with a deep breath, I unfolded it once more. Anna's handwriting was deliberate, careful, as if she had known the moment this letter would be read. Her words spilled out the story of her last weeks, the pressures at work, the subtle betrayals by those closest to her, the guilt she carried for things that weren't her fault. She spoke of a friend, someone she trusted more than anyone, who had deceived her, leaving marks on her heart that no one could see. Her tone was gentle, almost forgiving, but the pain beneath it was clear. I felt my chest tighten with each line. I remembered the time she had smiled at me, trying to hide her worry, trying to keep me from knowing the struggles that haunted her. How could I have missed it all? And yet I could not dwell on regret. Not yet. I saw her as a little girl again, her hair tied into pigtails, skipping across the garden, chasing Thomas with relentless energy. She would laugh, throwing herself into life with abandon, never thinking of consequences. I remember the evenings we spent reading together, her small hand gripping mine as she read aloud, mispronouncing words and laughing when I corrected her. She had always been fearless, and I had always been so proud. But there had always been shadows beneath her courage. Even as a child, she noticed things adults ignored, the subtleties of human behavior, the hidden truths in polite smiles. I had dismissed it then as cleverness, wit. Now I realized it was foresight. I looked down at Thomas, still sleeping against my chest. I whispered softly, though he could barely hear me. She was brave, Thomas, braver than we will ever know. I closed my eyes and let memories flood my mind. The first day of school, her scraped knees, the pride in her eyes when she graduated, all the milestones a father cherishes, but also all the moments I wished I had done more. I had loved her in the ways I knew, but I had never truly understood the battles she fought alone. Then my mind returned to the letter. Anna had written about something else, something I could barely grasp at first. A shadow of fear, a warning, a truth that had been hidden. She mentioned someone close to her, someone I had trusted. The lines made my blood run cold. I could not bring myself to finish reading that part aloud. Thomas stirred, mumbling something about wanting to see the flowers. I nodded, gently shaking him awake. We left the church, stepping into the drizzle. The cemetery spread before us like a quiet sea of stone and earth. We approached Anna's grave. Fresh soil, neat and sullen. I knelt, placing the letter gently beside her headstone. The sky was gray, but a single ray of light broke through the clouds, touching the engraved letters of her name. I felt something, a presence perhaps, or maybe just my imagination, but it was comforting in a way I could not describe. I began to recall her final days, the subtle changes in her demeanor, the quiet sadness she had tried to hide. There was a man, she wrote, someone she thought she could trust, who had betrayed her.
I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but also something else, the need to understand. I had to know the full story before I could grieve properly. The cemetery was silent, save for the drizzle and the occasional bird. Thomas played quietly, throwing small clumps of wet leaves, unaware of the gravity surrounding us. I watched him and realized how fragile life is, how quickly joy can vanish, and how important it is to carry truth, even if it hurts. I returned home that evening, the letter clutched tightly in my hands. The house was quiet, too quiet. Every shadow seemed alive, echoing memories of Anna's laughter, her cries, her stubborn arguments. I sat in my chair, Thomas asleep on the couch beside me, and read the letter again. Her words revealed something I could not have predicted. A long-hidden betrayal, one that had haunted her silently. I felt grief, anger, confusion, and sorrow all at once, and yet, beneath it all, there was a message of love, a reminder that even in death she cared for us, for me, for Thomas, for the family she left behind. I remembered the day she learned to ride her bike. She had fallen countless times, bruised knees, skinned elbows, but never gave up. Her resilience was unmatched, her courage inspiring. I had told her, "Anna, slow down," but she had simply smiled, dusted herself off, and pedaled faster. I now understood. That same courage had carried her through struggles I never saw, battles she never told me about. By the end of that night, I had read the letter several times. Each reading revealed more, hidden fears, subtle warnings, the essence of who she was in those final weeks. I realized that Anna had left more than grief behind. She had left me a responsibility to remember her fully, to protect Thomas, to seek the truth of what really happened.
I looked at Thomas. He pressed his small hand against mine. His innocent eyes seemed to know something I did not. I wanted to protect him from the truth, but I knew some truths cannot be hidden forever. I took a deep breath, and I read the rest of the letter. Every word, every confession, every secret. And as I read, I felt a presence, not frightening, but familiar. Anna somehow there, guiding me through her final message. By the time I folded the letter again, the service had ended. People filed out, murmuring prayers, sharing condolences. Thomas and I lingered. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The shadow had vanished, leaving only a sense of quiet, a sense of understanding. I pressed the letter to my chest one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Anna. I will try. I will try to understand." The morning after the funeral, the house felt emptier than it had before. Thomas slept longer than usual, curled on the couch, clutching a small blanket Anna had given him. I stared at the letter again, unwilling to leave it alone. It was more than words on paper. It was a doorway into the last weeks of my daughter's life, into her fears, her secrets, and perhaps into the truth of her death. I began to read, this time slowly, aloud to myself. Each sentence weighed heavily, yet demanded attention. Her words were careful, deliberate, almost as if she were speaking directly to me now, guiding me through her thoughts from beyond the grave.
"Papa," she wrote, "I cannot tell everyone what I have seen, what I have known, but you must understand. There are people who are not what they appear to be, and I have walked among them in silence. I have tried to protect you, to protect Thomas, to protect myself, but the shadows are real, Papa. They reach further than I could ever imagine." I paused. The shadows. She had written this before her death. Did she sense danger? I remembered the afternoons when Anna would run through the park with Thomas, chasing pigeons and giggling uncontrollably. She had seemed so full of life, so radiant, and yet I now understood that even then there were cracks beneath that joy. She had carried burdens alone, burdens she did not share with anyone, not even me. I had been too blind, too occupied with the trivialities of my own life to notice, and now those shadows had taken her from me, or so I feared. The letter continued, "Do not look at me with anger, Papa. I have made choices that may seem confusing, but they were made to protect you. There is someone close to us, someone trusted, who has caused harm in ways no one would suspect. If anything happens to me, you must understand it is not by my own will, but by forces I could not control." I dropped the letter. I had read warnings before, cryptic ones, but these words, they felt alive. They clawed at the corners of my mind, urging me to uncover the truth, to see what I had ignored, to confront what I had feared. Thomas stirred, eyes blinking open. "Grandpa, are you reading her letter again?" I nodded, unable to speak. How could I explain to a child the depths of loss, the weight of secrets, the shadows that lingered in life long after someone has gone? I decided that day I could not remain idle. Anna had left me clues, and it was my duty to follow them. I gathered photographs, her diary entries, and pieces of correspondence she had kept hidden. Each item was a breadcrumb, each memory a thread leading me deeper into her final days. I recalled one evening not long before her death. Anna was unusually quiet, sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling into a notebook. I asked her what she was writing. She smiled faintly, a mix of sadness and determination. "Just notes, Papa," she had said. I did not press. I wish I had. As I pieced together her notes, a pattern emerged. Mentions of a neighbor who had been overly curious, a colleague who had insisted on secrecy, subtle hints at conflicts Anna had never shared, and then a repeated reference to someone within the family circle. I felt my heart tighten. Could it be? Had someone I trusted harmed her in ways I could never have imagined? I looked at Thomas, asleep once again on the couch, clutching her small blanket. I knew I had to protect him. He was innocent, unaware, too young to understand the complexity of adult deception. And yet I also knew he would sense it soon enough. Children always do. I began documenting everything I knew, everything I remembered, every small incident from Anna's life that now seemed suspicious in hindsight. It was tedious, exhausting, and painful, but necessary. I owed her that much, and I owed it to Thomas. Days passed. I retraced Anna's final steps, the places she visited, the people she spoke with, the conversations she had left unfinished. Each location brought a wave of memories. The coffee shop where she laughed with friends, the office where she stayed late, typing until her eyes ached, the small park bench where she often sat with Thomas, teaching him to notice the world even in sorrow. I remembered a particular evening at the park. Anna had hugged me tightly, whispering, "Papa, I'm scared, but don't worry. I will always protect Thomas. You too." I had laughed it off, thinking it was just the stress of work or her vivid imagination. Now I understood. She had sensed the shadows. She had known something I could not yet grasp. By the third day, I had collected every note, every clue, every memory, and I began to see the outline of a truth I had avoided for so long. Anna had not just suffered silently. She had tried to shield us, me, Thomas, from a reality that was darker than I dared to imagine. And I realized the shadows she spoke of were closer than I had thought. That night, I felt her presence more strongly than ever, a warmth, a gentle tug at my heart, urging me forward. I whispered, barely audible, "Anna, I hear you. I will find the truth." And for the first time since her death, I felt purpose. The grief remained, raw and piercing, but it was joined now by determination. I would follow her breadcrumbs. I would uncover the shadows, and I would protect the family she loved so fiercely.
The next morning, Thomas woke me before dawn. His small hand shook mine, eyes wide, still haunted by the funeral and the sudden absence of his mother. I had thought the boy would sleep longer, exhausted from grief, but he was awake, staring out the window at the rain-damp garden, searching for answers I didn't have. I led him to the kitchen. He perched on the stool like he always had, knees swinging. I made tea for both of us, letting the steam fog up the window while the world outside slowly brightened. "Grandpa," he whispered, "why did Mommy have to go? Was it someone's fault?" I took a deep breath. For years I had told myself I would never say the wrong thing, that silence was safer, gentler. But silence had already cost us everything. Now was the moment to speak. "Yes, Thomas," I said softly. "It wasn't an accident. Your mother, she got hurt, and it was because of something people sometimes do when they are angry, when they forget how precious life is. But she didn't want you to know in fear. She wanted you to remember her love, not the pain." His eyes filled, and he clutched my hand. I could feel the tremor in his small body. "But why didn't you stop it?" he asked. The question cut through me, honest and piercing. I swallowed hard. "I tried, Thomas. I tried in every way I knew, but life is sometimes faster than we are, and we don't see the shadows until they're right behind us. I couldn't save her, but we can honor her now." We sat together in silence. The room smelled faintly of tea and old wood, the soft morning light painting everything gold. I let him cry. I let myself cry. The house was empty of her presence, but full of her memory. And for the first time in weeks, that memory didn't feel suffocating. It felt alive. After breakfast, I showed Thomas her letters. I read the safe parts aloud, the funny notes she'd scribbled to make him laugh, the reminders to take care of his homework, the small confessions of her love for him and me. We didn't read the last letter that revealed Marcus's guilt yet. That could wait, for now it was enough to remember her laughter. Days passed. We cleaned her house together, sorted through her things, and slowly, carefully, I began sharing the truth about the accident with Thomas in small, gentle pieces. I told him she hadn't wanted anyone to be angry, that she had tried to protect him from the harshness of the world.
He listened, and though his eyes were sad, they reflected understanding. He trusted me to tell him, and I felt a thread of hope reweaving itself between us. One afternoon I took Thomas to the garden. The sun broke fully through the clouds. I showed him where she used to plant flowers, where she laughed when the wind lifted her hair, where she sat and watched him play. "Grandpa," he said quietly, tugging on my sleeve, "I think Mommy would want us to be happy, even if she isn't here." I nodded, tears sliding down my cheeks. He was right, and for the first time I believed it too. That evening I wrote a letter of my own to Anna. I told her everything I had felt, everything I had learned from her letters. I admitted my failures, my regrets, but I promised I would live honestly for Thomas and for myself. I thanked her for leaving me the truth, for giving me a chance to make peace. When I finished, I placed my letter beside hers at her grave. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of wet earth and lilies. I felt a quiet warmth, not a presence, not a ghost, but a memory, a life well loved, and a promise kept. Thomas held my hand. We walked slowly, step by step, carrying grief and love in equal measure. The past could not be changed, but the future, our future, could be lived with honesty, with tenderness, and with the courage Anna always carried inside her. We drove home, the car filled with quiet reflection. I glanced at Thomas, finally smiling faintly as he traced patterns on the window with his finger. He didn't need words now. The truth was with him and with me. And I knew somehow that Anna would have been proud. The rain had stopped completely. The world outside was washed clean, and so I realized could we, carrying forward her memory, living her love, and embracing the fragile, fleeting, and precious gift of every new day.